The bronze war drums echoed across the fortress walls as I stood at the edge of the execution platform, my hands bound, watching my husband draw his bow. General Marcus, the man who had sworn to protect me on our wedding day, now aimed his arrow at my heart. "For the Empire," he declared, his voice carrying across the battlefield where 10,000 enemy soldiers waited. A true general protects his people above all else. The Hushan rebels had given him a choice: surrender the fortress or watch them execute me, his wife of 3 years. His decision came swift and merciless. The arrow flew true, piercing through silk and flesh, and as my blood painted the stones crimson, I saw her, Lieutenant Tanya, standing beside him in her battle armor, her hand reaching for his as if to comfort him. In my final moments I understood everything. This was never about duty. This was about her. But death, as I would learn, was not my ending. When I opened my eyes again, I was 17, standing in my father's study 3 days before my wedding to Marcus. The bronze mirror on the wall showed my younger face, unmarked by tears or betrayal. The gods had given me something more powerful than revenge. They had given me knowledge. This time, I would not be the sacrificial lamb in Marcus's rise to glory. This time I would write my own destiny. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy listening. The morning sun filtered through the paper windows of the Chancellor's mansion as I sat at my writing desk, my hand trembling slightly as I held the brush. 3 days. I had 3 days before my marriage to Marcus. "Young Mistress Visha," my maid Lily entered with tea. "Your father requests your presence in the main hall. General Marcus has arrived." In my past life, this meeting had filled me with joy. Marcus, young and handsome at 23, already commanded the Phoenix Legion. Every noble daughter in the capital dreamed of catching his eye. But I had been the lucky one, or so I had thought. I descended the stairs slowly, each step measured. In the main hall, I saw him. Marcus stood tall in his crimson military robes, the golden phoenix embroidered across his chest. Beside him stood Tanya, introduced as his aide-de-camp, though I now knew she was so much more. "Lady Visha," Marcus bowed formally. His eyes, dark as midnight, held that same distant courtesy I remembered. Even then, before our marriage, he had looked at me as one might regard a particularly valuable treaty, necessary but not desired. "General Marcus," I returned the bow, keeping my expression neutral. "To what do we owe this honor?" My father, Chancellor Thomas, beamed beside them. "The general has come to discuss the wedding preparations. His Majesty is most pleased with this union." "Indeed," Marcus replied, his gaze flickering briefly to Tanya. "The Empire's stability depends on strong alliances." An alliance. That's all I had ever been to him. "General," I spoke carefully, watching his reaction. "I've heard disturbing reports about Hushan movements near the border. Surely your attention would be better served there than discussing wedding colors." Marcus's eyes sharpened, truly looking at me for perhaps the first time. "You follow military reports, Lady Visha? A general's wife should understand her husband's battles," I replied smoothly, though inside my heart raced. In my past life, I had been ignorant of military matters until it was too late. "I've heard they have a new commander. Someone called the Shadow Wolf?" Tanya stepped forward, her hand moving instinctively to her sword. "Where did you hear that name? That information is classified." I met her gaze steadily. Tanya was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, sharp, dangerous, and utterly captivating. Her raven hair was pulled back in a warrior's knot, her jade eyes assessing me like a threat. "The servants talk," I said simply, "and I listen." Marcus studied me with new interest. "The Shadow Wolf is indeed a concern. He's been recruiting heavily in the border villages." "Then perhaps," I suggested, my voice honey-sweet, "our wedding should be postponed? After all, the Empire's safety must come first." My father sputtered. "Visha, the Emperor himself has blessed this union." "Which is why I would never want to distract the general from his duties," I interrupted smoothly. "Surely His Majesty would understand if military necessity required a delay?" Marcus and Tanya exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that spoke of countless battles fought side by side. In my past life, I had ignored these looks, too blinded by my naive love to see what was directly in front of me. Lady Visha speaks wisely, Tanya said, surprising everyone. The shadow wolf won't wait for wedding ceremonies. But Marcus shook his head. The Emperor's decree cannot be altered without cause. We proceed as planned. He turned to me, and for a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Duty or resignation, I couldn't tell. 3 days hence we will be wed. After they left, I retreated to my chambers and pulled out a hidden scroll, one I had written upon waking in this new timeline. It contained every piece of crucial information I remembered from my past life. Battle dates, traitor names, and most importantly, the location where the shadow wolf would strike first. In my previous life, Tanya had discovered this information and been hailed a hero. But the intelligence had actually come from my cousin, a merchant who traded in the border towns. I had passed it to Marcus, who had given it to Tanya to verify. She had taken full credit, and I, the foolish wife, had said nothing. Not this time. That evening I made my move. Dressed in commoner's clothes with my face half hidden by a veil, I slipped out through the servants' gate and made my way to the Jade Phoenix Tavern, a place where military officers gathered to drink and gamble. In my past life, I would never have dared enter such an establishment. But death has a way of burning away propriety. The tavern was thick with smoke and laughter. I found my target quickly. Commander Eric of the Dragon Regiment, Marcus's rival and a man of uncommon honor. He sat alone in a corner, nursing a cup of wine. "Commander Eric," I said softly, sliding into the seat across from him. His hand moved to his sword, then paused as he took in my expensive clothes beneath the common cloak. "Lady Visha? What are you doing here?" "Protecting the Empire," I replied, pulling out a sealed scroll. "This contains the Shadow Wolf's battle plans for the next month, including his strike on Moonwater Fortress." Eric's eyes widened. "How could you possibly? Does it matter?" I interrupted. "Verify the information yourself. Send scouts. But move quickly, the attack comes in 7 days. Why not give this to your betrothed?" I smiled bitterly. Because General Marcus would never believe intelligence from his sheltered bride-to-be. But he would believe it from you. Eric studied the scroll, his expression growing grave as he read. This could save thousands of lives. Then make sure it does." I stood to leave, then paused. "And Commander? When you present this information, perhaps mention that your source wishes to remain anonymous. Heroes who seek glory rarely appreciate competition." I left him there, knowing the seed was planted. In my past life, Tanya's discovery of this information had elevated her to Deputy General. Now let's see how she would fare without stolen accomplishments. The morning of my wedding arrived with storm clouds gathering on the horizon, a fitting omen, I thought, as Lily helped me into the elaborate red wedding dress. The phoenix crown felt heavier than I remembered, each pearl and gold ornament a weight pressing down on my skull. "My lady, you look beautiful," Lily said, but her eyes held worry. "Though you seem different these past 3 days." Different? If only she knew how different. In my past life, I had been giddy with joy, writing poetry about my love for Marcus, dreaming of our future together. Now I felt only cold determination. A commotion arose in the courtyard. Through the window, I saw imperial messengers arriving on horseback, their urgent voices carrying up to my chamber. "The Hushan forces are moving." Commander Eric's intelligence was correct. They planned to attack Moonwater Fortress within days. My father burst into my room, protocol forgotten. "Visha, the wedding must be postponed. The Emperor has ordered all available generals to the frontier immediately." I lowered my eyes demurely. "Of course, father. The Empire must come first." But as I began to remove the phoenix crown, another messenger arrived, this one bearing the seal of Prince Alexander, the Emperor's younger brother. "Lady Visha is commanded to attend the prince at the palace immediately." My blood ran cold. Prince Alexander, in my past life, I had barely known him, seeing him only at formal ceremonies where his dark reputation kept most nobles at a distance. He was known as the Shadow Prince, a man who controlled the Empire's spy network, and whose enemies had a habit of disappearing. What could he want with me? The palace's shadow pavilion stood apart from the main complex, its black walls and silver roof tiles making it look like it existed in perpetual twilight. Guards in black armor stood at every entrance, their faces hidden behind demon masks. Prince Alexander waited in his study, A room filled with maps and scrolls that looked more like a war room than a prince's quarters. He was younger than I expected, perhaps 25, with sharp cheekbones and eyes like polished obsidian. Where Marcus was sunlight and glory, Alexander was midnight and secrets. Lady Visha, he said, not looking up from the map he was studying. Or should I say, our mysterious intelligence source who visited Commander Eric 3 nights ago? My heart stopped. Your Highness, I don't understand. Please. He raised one elegant hand. My spies are everywhere, especially in taverns where military secrets might be traded. Though I admit, I didn't expect the Chancellor's sheltered daughter to be trafficking in military intelligence. I remained silent, weighing my options. Alexander finally looked up, and his gaze was like being pierced by twin daggers. The information you provided saved Moonwater Fortress. The Shadow Wolf's forces were ambushed and scattered. The Empire owes you a debt. The Empire owes me nothing, I replied carefully. I merely did my duty. He stood, moving closer with the fluid grace of a predator. And yet, you chose not to give this information to your betrothed. Why? The truth burned on my tongue, but I couldn't speak of my past life. General Marcus has many concerns. I didn't wish to add to them with unverified intelligence. Liar, Alexander said softly, almost appreciatively. You don't trust him. Or more accurately, you don't trust Lieutenant Tanya. My composure cracked slightly. Your Highness sees much. It's my job to see everything, he replied, including the fact that your wedding has been postponed indefinitely, and General Marcus rode out this morning with his lieutenant at his side, not showing any concern for leaving his bride behind. The word stung, even though I had expected nothing less. I have a proposition for you, Lady Visha, Alexander continued. Your intelligence network, yes, I know you have one, no one obtains that level of detail without sources, could be valuable to the Empire. Work with me, and I'll ensure you're never forced into a marriage you don't want. And if I refuse? He smiled, and it was like winter moonlight on a blade. Then you return to waiting for a husband who rides to war with another woman in his heart. Your choice. I looked at this dangerous prince, this master of shadows and secrets, and saw an opportunity one had never had in my past life, the chance to be more than a general's discarded wife. I accept, I said. Alexander's smile widened. Excellent. Your first assignment begins immediately. There's a traitor in the Phoenix Legion, someone feeding information to the Hushan. Find them. I already knew who it was in my past life. The traitor had been exposed after I died, used as another feather in Tanya's cap. But this time I would be the one to claim that victory. Give me 2 weeks, I said. You have 10 days, Alexander countered. My sources say the Shadow Wolf is planning something desperate after his defeat at Moonwater. As I left the Shadow Pavilion, my wedding dress exchanged for practical traveling clothes, I felt the first real smile in days cross my face. Marcus and Tanya thought they were riding toward glory. They had no idea what was coming. The Phoenix Legion supply camp sprawled across the valley like a small city, thousands of tents arranged in precise military formation. I arrived on the 7th day, disguised as a merchant's daughter delivering medical supplies. It was an identity Prince Alexander had arranged, complete with forged documents and a wagon full of genuine medicines. In my past life, I had never visited Marcus at his military camps, staying obediently in the capital like a proper general's wife. Now, moving through the camp with purpose, I saw what I had missed, the constant activity, the careful hierarchy, and most importantly, the flow of information. Miss Chun, a young soldier greeted me, using my assumed name. The medical tent is this way. I followed him, my eyes scanning everything. There, Tanya stood near the command tent, directing troops with natural authority. And there Marcus studying maps with his senior officers. Neither had noticed me yet. The traitor I sought was Colonel Briggs, Marcus's quartermaster. In my past life, he had sold supply routes to the Hushan for 3 years before being caught. By then, hundreds had died from ambushes on supposedly secret supply runs. But I needed proof. That night I waited in the shadow of the supply warehouses, wrapped in a dark cloak. Prince Alexander had taught me patience in our brief training sessions, the art of being still, of becoming one with darkness. Near midnight, my patience was rewarded. Briggs emerged from his tent, looking around nervously before heading toward the forest edge. I followed silent as silk. In a clearing, he met with a hooded figure. Money changed hands along with a scroll. I crept closer, needing to hear. A hand clamped over my mouth. I struggled, then froze as I heard a familiar voice. "Don't scream," Marcus whispered in my ear. "What in the nine hells are you doing here, Visha?" He dragged me back behind a large tree, his grip firm but not painful. In the moonlight, his face was a mask of controlled fury. "Following traitors," I hissed back once he released me. "That's Colonel Briggs selling our supply routes." "I know," he interrupted. "We've been watching him for weeks." Tanya materialized from the shadows like a ghost. "The General and I have been tracking the security breach," she said coolly. "Though we didn't expect interference from civilians." "Civilian?" I laughed bitterly. "I'm the one who warned Commander Eric about Moonwater. Or did you think that intelligence appeared from thin air?" Marcus stared at me. "That was you. Surprised your sheltered fiancé has a brain?" I shot back. "Or just disappointed Tanya didn't get credit for it?" Tanya's hand went to her sword. "Watch your tongue." "Enough," Marcus commanded. He looked between us, then back at the clearing where Briggs was concluding his transaction. "We need that scroll as evidence." "Tanya, circle right." "They're gone," I interrupted, pointing to the now empty clearing. "You were too busy arguing to notice them leave." Marcus cursed, the first time I'd ever heard him do so. "Months of work ruined." "Not necessarily," I said, pulling out a small mechanical bird from my pouch, another gift from Prince Alexander. "This has been recording everything since I arrived. The Shadow Prince's artificers are quite clever." Both warriors stared at the device in amazement. "You're working for Prince Alexander?" Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm working for the Empire," I corrected. "Something you'd know if you bothered to ask about my life instead of assuming I'd sit quietly in the capital, writing poetry and embroidering while you rode off with." I bit off the words. "With me," Tanya finished, her jade eyes glittering. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? You're jealous." "Jealous?" I laughed, and it must have sounded unhinged because both of them stepped back. I'd have to care to be jealous. And I stopped caring the moment I realized that my husband-to-be sees me as nothing more than a political obligation. "Visha," Marcus started. "Save it," I cut him off. "We have a traitor to catch. The recording is enough to condemn Briggs, but we need the scroll to know what information he's already sold." "How do you propose we get it?" Marcus asked, clearly struggling with this new version of me. I smiled coldly. "Leave that to the civilian." The next morning I approached Briggs's tent openly, carrying a medical supply manifest. "Colonel Briggs, I need your signature for these supplies." He looked up from his desk, immediately suspicious. "I wasn't told about any delivery." "Emergency medicines from the capital," I explained, letting my voice tremble slightly. "After the victory at Moonwater, the prince himself ordered additional supplies sent." Briggs relaxed slightly. Men like him always underestimated nervous young women. As he signed the manifest, I accidentally knocked over his ink pot, splashing black ink across his desk and the papers beneath. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I gasped, grabbing cloths to clean up. In the chaos, my fingers found the scroll I'd seen him receive, slipping it into my sleeve while mopping up ink with my other hand. "Clumsy girl," Briggs snapped. "Get out." I fled, clutching the scroll. Outside, Marcus and Tanya waited. "Did you?" Marcus began. I handed him the scroll. "Supply routes for the next month, plus the location of a weapons cache. All sold to the Hushan." Marcus read quickly, his face darkening. "This would have cost us hundreds of lives. Now you can feed them false information instead," I suggested. "Turn Briggs into an unwitting double agent." Tanya looked at me with something that might have been respect. "That's actually brilliant." "Try not to sound so surprised," I said dryly. "Now I need to return to the capital. The prince is expecting my report." "Visha, wait." Marcus caught my arm. "We need to talk about." "About what?" I asked, meeting his eyes directly. "About our engagement. Consider it dissolved. I'll tell the Emperor I'm unworthy of the great Phoenix General." You're free to marry whoever you actually want. I saw something flash in his eyes, surprise, perhaps even hurt. But I was done trying to read Marcus's emotions. That's not what General. A messenger rushed up. The Shadow Wolf has been spotted moving toward Eagle Pass with a massive force. Marcus released me, duty overtaking everything else as always. Prepare the Legion. We march within the hour. As he strode away with Tanya, I felt a chapter of my life closing. But this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Prince Alexander's reaction to my report was not what I expected. You dissolved your engagement to Marcus? He set down his teacup with deliberate precision. Without consulting me? We sat in his private garden, a place of midnight blooming flowers and silver moonlight even at midday, some trick of architecture and mirrors that I didn't understand. I wasn't aware I needed your permission for my personal affairs, I replied carefully. Everything is my affair when it concerns the Empire's stability, he said. That engagement was politically valuable. Was it? I challenged. A general who resents his marriage is a distracted general. Better he focus on his battles and his beloved lieutenant. Alexander studied me with those obsidian eyes. You're bitter. I'm practical, I corrected. Speaking of which, the intelligence about Eagle Pass, it's a trap. He leaned forward. Explain. The Shadow Wolf wants Marcus to think he's attacking Eagle Pass, but the real target is Crow's Nest Fortress. It guards the salt mines. Without salt for preserving food, our armies would starve come winter. How could you possibly know this? I couldn't tell him about my past life, about watching Marcus fall into this very trap and barely survive. The supply manifests bricks sold. They show unusual interest in our salt reserves and preservation methods. The Shadow Wolf isn't planning for a battle, he's planning for a siege. Alexander stood abruptly. If you're right, we need to warn Marcus immediately. Or, I said slowly, we let him walk into the trap. The prince turned, his expression dangerous. You would let thousands die for petty revenge? No, I said firmly. But Marcus won't listen to warnings from me or even you. He's too proud, too certain of his own intelligence. But if we let him discover the trap himself, just in time to counter it. He saves the day, keeps his reputation, but learns he's not infallible, Alexander finished. Clever. Cruel but clever. I learned from watching you, Your Highness. He laughed, a rare sound. Perhaps I've been too good a teacher. He moved closer and I caught his scent, nightshade and steel. But be careful, Visha. Marcus isn't the only one who can fall into traps. Before I could ask what he meant, a servant announced visitors, my parents. My mother burst into tears upon seeing me. Visha, how could you break the engagement? The scandal, the shame. There is no shame in choosing duty to the Empire over personal happiness, I said calmly. Prince Alexander has honored me by allowing me to serve an intelligence gathering. My father looked between Alexander and me, his political mind already calculating. The Shadow Prince has taken you under his protection? Lady Visha has proven quite valuable, Alexander confirmed. Her network of merchant contacts provides intelligence our military spies cannot access. It was a convenient lie that gave me respectability. My parents, faced with the prince's support, could hardly object. After they left, Alexander handed me a black jade pendant. Wear this. It marks you as under my protection. Few would dare harm someone bearing the Shadow Prince's seal. And the price for this protection? Your complete loyalty, he said simply. And your assistance with a delicate matter. There's going to be an assassination attempt at the Harvest Festival. I need you to help me prevent it. Who's the target? Me. The Harvest Festival transformed the capital into a river of lanterns and silk. In my past life, I had attended on Marcus's arm, ignored while he discussed battle strategies with other officers. Now I moved through the crowds alone, the black jade pendant cold against my chest. Alexander had positioned me at the Moon Bridge, the festival's heart where he would perform the traditional blessing at midnight. My job was simple, watch for anything unusual. Everything was unusual. A merchant selling masks whose eyes tracked every guard. A fortune teller whose tent was positioned to overlook the bridge. A group of dancers whose formations looked suspiciously like combat maneuvers. I activated the recording bird. letting it circle overhead. Through its eyes I could see the broader pattern. The assassins were everywhere, at least 20 of them, positioned in a killing circle. This was more than an assassination. This was a massacre waiting to happen. I needed to warn Alexander, but he was already approaching the bridge, dressed in formal robes that made him a perfect target. Behind him walked, my heart stopped. Marcus and Tanya were part of his honor guard. Of course, the returning war heroes, fresh from their victory at Eagle Pass, the trap I had helped them avoid through carefully leaked intelligence. They looked magnificent together. Him in phoenix armor, her in dragon scale mail. Our eyes met across the crowd. Marcus's expression shifted, surprise, then something else. He started toward me, but the ceremony was beginning. Alexander raised his arms to begin the blessing. The crowd fell silent. That's when I saw it. Moonlight glinting off a crossbow bolt aimed from the fortune teller's tent. Down! I screamed, throwing myself at Alexander. The bolt whistled overhead as we crashed to the ground. Chaos erupted. The dancers drew hidden blades. The merchant threw off his cloak, revealing armor beneath. The crowd screamed, pushing in all directions. Marcus and Tanya reacted instantly, their swords singing as they engaged the attackers. But there were too many. Alexander rolled to his feet, pulling me behind him. You saved my life. Thank me later, I gasped, pointing. The tent, the leader's there. He nodded, drawing a black blade I hadn't known he carried. Stay here. But as he moved toward the tent, more assassins emerged from the crowd. One came straight at me, blade raised. I had no weapon, no training. In my past life this would have been my end. But Prince Alexander had taught me one thing. Everything is a weapon if you're desperate enough. I grabbed a festival lantern, smashing it into the assassin's face. Hot oil splashed and he screamed. I didn't stop to think, just grabbed his dropped blade and ran toward Alexander. The prince was surrounded, fighting 3 at once with lethal grace. I had never seen him in combat. He moved like flowing water, deadly and beautiful. But even he couldn't fight everyone. An assassin raised a blade behind him. This time I didn't hesitate. The sword felt foreign in my hands, but my aim was true. The assassin fell. Alexander spun, saw me standing over the body, and something shifted in his expression. Behind you, he shouted. I turned, raising the blade instinctively. Steel met steel with a crash that jarred my entire arm. My attacker pressed forward, and I knew I was outmatched. Then Tanya was there, her sword taking my opponent's head off in one clean stroke. You fight like a child, she said, but there was no mockery in it. I fight like someone who wants to live, I replied. Marcus appeared. Blood splattered across his armor. The bridge is secure. Most of the assassins are dead or captured. Most, Alexander demanded. An explosion rocked the night. The fortune teller's tent erupted in flames, and through the smoke walked a figure I recognized with cold dread. The Shadow Wolf himself. In my past life I had never seen him, only heard of his death in the final battle. But here he stood, tall, scarred, with eyes like a winter storm. Prince Alexander, he said mockingly. Did you think you were the only one who could play with shadows? General Titus, Alexander replied, and I gasped. General Titus, the Emperor's own cousin, reported dead 5 years ago. I should have known. You always were too proud to stay dead. Pride. Titus laughed bitterly. Your brother took everything from me, my rank, my lands, my family. Tonight, I take his beloved younger brother. He moved impossibly fast. Alexander met him halfway, their blades colliding in a shower of sparks. They fought like demons, each move potentially lethal. Marcus started forward to help, but more assassins poured from the shadows. We were overwhelmed. That's when I remembered the recording bird, still circling overhead. Prince Alexander had mentioned its other features. I pulled out the control mechanism, finding the emergency switch. Everyone, close your eyes. I activated the flash powder. Blinding light erupted from the mechanical bird, turning night into blazing day. The assassins cried out, stumbling blind. In that moment of advantage, everything shifted. Marcus and Tanya cut through the blinded enemies. Alexander's blade found Titus's shoulder, sending him stumbling back. This isn't over, Titus snarled, pulling something from his robes, a smoke bomb. When the smoke cleared, he was gone, leaving only bodies and blood. Alexander stood in the moonlight, breathing hard. His perfect composure finally cracked. Blood ran from a cut on his cheek. "You're hurt," I said, moving toward him. He caught my hand. "You saved me. Twice." In the days following the assassination attempt, everything shifted. The Emperor, grateful for his brother's survival, showered honors on all who had fought. Marcus was promoted to Supreme General. Tanya became the first female dragon commander. And Lady Visha is appointed as Royal Intelligence Advisor, the Emperor announced. Her quick thinking saved countless lives. The court buzzed with shock. A woman in such a position was unprecedented. After the ceremony, Marcus cornered me in the palace gardens. "We need to talk," he said. "We really don't," I replied, trying to move past him. He blocked my path. "You were right. About everything. About Tanya, about my feelings, about treating you as an obligation." I laughed bitterly. "And it only took me nearly dying for you to realize it? That's not." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I did care for you, Visha. But I was young, stupid, and yes, I was in love with Tanya. But seeing you these past weeks, seeing who you really are when you're not trying to be the perfect general's wife." "Stop," I said firmly. "Whatever you think you're feeling, it's too late. We're different people now." "Are we?" He stepped closer. "Or are we finally being honest?" "The only honest thing between us is that we were never meant to be," I said. "You have Tanya. Don't insult both of us by pretending otherwise." His face darkened. "Tanya and I aren't. It's not what you think." "I don't think about it at all anymore," I lied. Before he could respond, Prince Alexander appeared. "General Marcus, I believe you're needed at the War Ministry." Marcus looked between us, jaw clenched. "This conversation isn't over." After he left, Alexander offered me his arm. "Walk with me." We strolled through his private garden, past the midnight flowers that had fully bloomed under the stars. "You still love him," Alexander observed. "Love and wisdom rarely coexist," I replied. "How poetic. And how evasive." He stopped beside a reflecting pool. "I have a proposition for you." "Another one?" "Marry me." I nearly fell into the pool. "What?" "Think about it logically," he continued as if he hadn't just shattered my world. "You need protection from those who resent your new position. I need someone I can trust absolutely. We work well together. That's not a basis for marriage, isn't it?" He turned to face me fully. "Most marriages among nobility are built on less. At least we have genuine respect and, dare I say, affection." "You're serious?" "I rarely joke about marriage proposals." He pulled out a ring. Not the traditional jade but black pearl set in silver. "I'm not offering you love, Visha. I'm offering you partnership, power, the chance to reshape the empire from the shadows." "And if I want love?" His eyes softened slightly. "Then I'd say you're looking in the wrong places. Marcus will always choose duty over heart. He killed you once for it, didn't he?" I froze. "How did you?" "I told you I see everything." He moved closer. "Including the fact that you have memories that shouldn't exist. Knowledge of events that haven't happened. You're not the only one with impossible memories, Visha." My mind reeled. "You remember too? The other timeline." "Fragments," he admitted. "Enough to know that in that world, I stood by and did nothing while a good woman died for nothing. I won't make that mistake again." Before I could respond, shouts erupted from the palace. Guards ran past us. "What's happening?" called out. "Attack on the Phoenix Legion camp," the guard replied. "The Shadow Wolf has returned with an army. He's captured Commander Tanya." Marcus was already at the war room when we arrived, his face pale with rage and fear. "They took her during a night raid," he explained tersely. "Left this." He held up a scroll. I recognized the writing, my own, from the intelligence reports I provided weeks ago. "He's using your own intelligence against us," I breathed. "He knows our weak points because I identified them." "This isn't your fault," Alexander said, but I barely heard him. In my past life, I had been the one captured, hung on the fortress walls as bait. Now it was Tanya. The parallel was too cruel to be coincidence. "What are his demands?" Alexander asked. Surrender of 3 fortresses and Marcus's public execution, Marcus replied flatly. Or Tanya dies at dawn. The room fell silent. You can't seriously be considering, one general began. I'll go, Marcus said. 1 life for thousands. Don't be an idiot, I snapped, and everyone turned to stare. That's exactly what he wants. You dead, Tanya dead, and the army demoralized. Then what do you suggest? Marcus's voice was ice. We give him what he expects, I said slowly, a plan forming. You riding to her rescue just like the romantic songs say. Except we make sure it's a rescue he doesn't survive. Alexander caught on first. A trap within a trap. Precisely. I turned to the war table, moving pieces. He expects you to come from the west, the direct route. You will, with a small force, visible, heroic. Meanwhile, the real army circles from the north through Dead Man's Pass. Dead Man's Pass is impossible to navigate at night, a general protested. Not if you have someone who knows every rock and tree, I said. My merchant contacts include smugglers. They use that pass regularly. Marcus stared at me. You're asking me to use Tanya as bait. I'm asking you to trust that she's strong enough to survive until we can save her properly, I countered. Or would you rather repeat history? The words hung between us. In the corner of my eye, I saw Alexander tense. What history? Marcus demanded. The kind that ends with someone dead for your pride, I said quietly. Choose, Marcus. Your ego or Tanya's life. Dead Man's Pass lived up to its name. A twisted path through jagged rocks and precipitous drops. I led the Shadow Guard, Alexander's elite soldiers, while Marcus played his part on the western road. You care for her, Alexander observed as we navigated a particularly treacherous section. Tanya. Despite everything. She's a warrior who deserves better than being a pawn in men's games, I replied. Including mine? Especially yours. He laughed softly. Your honesty remains refreshing. Look there. Below us spread the enemy camp. In the center, a wooden platform had been erected. Tanya hung from it, chains binding her arms. Even from this distance, I could see the defiance in her posture. Dawn in 2 hours, Alexander noted. Marcus should be in position soon. As if summoned by his name, we saw torches appearing on the western road. Marcus's force, moving openly toward the camp. The enemy stirred, focusing on this expected threat. Now, Alexander commanded. We descended like shadows. The Shadow Guard were artists of death, silent and efficient. By the time the alarm was raised, we were already inside the camp's perimeter. I broke off from the main force, heading for the platform. 2 guards stood watch. The blade felt more natural in my hand now, weighted with purpose rather than desperation. Prince Alexander's brief lessons had taken root. The first guard fell before he knew I was there. The second managed to shout before my blade found his throat. Visha! Tanya's voice held shock. No time, I said, working at her chains with the guard's keys. Can you fight? Always, she said grimly. The chains fell away just as the Shadow Wolf emerged from his command tent. Our eyes met across the battlefield. His widened in recognition and rage. You! He started toward us, but Marcus's forces had reached the camp's edge. The battle erupted in earnest. Tanya grabbed a fallen sword. Go. Find Alexander. Not leaving you. That's an order. She pushed me aside just as the Shadow Wolf's blade whistled through where I'd been standing. They engaged, steel ringing against steel. Tanya fought brilliantly despite her captivity, but she was weakened. The Shadow Wolf pressed his advantage. Then Marcus was there, intercepting a blow that would have taken Tanya's head. Titus, your fight is with me. Both phoenix birds in one cage, Titus laughed. Perfect. The 3-way battle was brutal. Marcus and Tanya fought in perfect synchronization, but Titus was desperate, dangerous. He pulled a hidden dagger, aiming for Tanya's exposed side. I moved without thinking, throwing myself between them. The blade bit deep into my shoulder instead of her heart. Visha! Multiple voices shouted my name. The pain was exquisite, familiar. Like before, when Marcus's arrow had pierced my heart. But this time I had chosen my death. Except Alexander was there, his black blade taking Titus's head in one clean stroke. No one else dies today. The Shadow Wolf's army, seeing their leader fall, scattered or surrendered. The battle was won. But I was falling, the world spinning. Strong arms caught me, not Marcus's but Alexander's. Stay with me, he commanded. That's an order from your prince. Since when do I follow orders? I managed. Marcus dropped to his knees beside us, his face stricken. Why? Why save her? Because, I gasped through the pain. Someone needs to break the cycle. No more sacrificial wives. Tanya knelt too, tears streaming down her warrior's face. You stupid, brave fool. That's Royal Intelligence Advisor, stupid, brave fool, I corrected. Alexander pressed something to my wound, cloth infused with medicine that burned like ice. You're not dying. I forbid it. Forbid. I laughed weakly. How very princely. The world faded. I woke to moonlight and the scent of midnight flowers. Alexander's private chambers, I realized. He sat beside my bed, still in his battle-stained armor. 3 days, he said without preamble. You've been unconscious 3 days. Did I miss anything interesting? Marcus confessed his love for you. Publicly. In front of the entire court. I sat up too quickly, sending pain shooting through my shoulder. What? He also broke his understanding with Tanya, declared you the bravest woman in the empire, and challenged anyone who questioned your honor to single combat. Alexander's expression was unreadable. 7 nobles are now nursing broken bones. That idiot. Tanya has been worse. She's appointed herself your personal guard and threatens anyone who comes near your room. I had to invoke royal privilege just to sit here. I pressed my hands to my face. This is a disaster. Is it? Alexander leaned forward. You saved the woman your former betrothed loves, killed the empire's greatest threat, and have 2 of the realm's finest warriors ready to die for you. Some would call that a victory. Do you? I call it complicated. He stood, moving to the window. Marcus wants to marry you. He's already petitioned the emperor. My heart clenched. And Tanya supports it. She says she never loved him romantically, that their bond was always that of siblings in arms. He turned back to me. The question is, what do you want? I want to not be a prize to be won, I said. I want to choose my own path. Then choose, he said simply. My offer stands. Partnership, power, and the freedom to be yourself. Or you can have Marcus, who offers love, passion, and a traditional life as a general's wife. Why do you care what I choose? He returned to my bedside, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in his obsidian eyes. Because in that other timeline, the one we both remember fragments of, you died thinking no one truly saw you. I see you, Visha. The intelligence, the courage, the absolutely infuriating tendency to throw yourself into danger. Alexander. I won't be Marcus, he continued. I won't promise you poetry and devotion. But I will promise that you'll never be second to anyone. You'll never be sacrificed for someone else's glory. And you'll never have to hide your strength. Before I could respond, commotion erupted outside. The door burst open despite the guards' protests. Marcus stood there, wild-eyed and desperate. Visha, thank the heavens you're awake. General Marcus, Alexander said coolly. These are private chambers. Then I'll be brief. Marcus crossed to my bed, dropping to one knee. Visha, I was a fool. I loved the idea of Tanya, the perfect warrior partner. But these past weeks, seeing your brilliance, your courage, I love you. The real you. Not the quiet bride I thought I was getting, but the woman who outmaneuvered us all. Marcus, marry me, he said urgently. Not because of duty or the emperor's decree, but because I can't imagine a life without you in it. I looked between them, Marcus golden and passionate, offering the love I'd once died for. And Alexander, dark and dangerous, offering the partnership I'd never known I needed. I need time, I said finally. Time to heal, to think. Of course, Alexander said immediately. Marcus looked like he wanted to protest, but nodded. I'll wait. However long it takes. They both left, and I was alone with my thoughts and the midnight flowers. Tanya visited the next day bringing soup. You saved my life, she said without preamble. Twice, if Marcus told the story true. Once, I corrected. The first time was Alexander. Still. She sat down uninvited. I owe you a debt. You owe me nothing. I owe you the truth. She set down the soup, meeting my eyes directly. I never loved Marcus romantically, but I let him think I might because it was easier than watching him marry someone else. That was selfish and cruel to both of you. Why tell me now? Because you deserve to know that if you choose him, there's no ghost between you. And if you don't choose him, it won't be because of me. And if I choose neither? She smiled slightly. Then you're even braver than I thought. The Autumn Moon Festival arrived with unusual fanfare. The Emperor had declared it a celebration of victory. The Shadow Wolf was dead, the borders were secure, and the Empire was at peace. I stood on the palace balcony, my shoulder fully healed but still tender. Below, the celebration was in full swing. I could see Marcus in his armor, surrounded by admirers but his eyes constantly searching. Alexander held court in his corner, shadowy and magnetic. You can't hide up here forever, a voice said behind me. I turned to find the Emperor himself, elderly but still sharp-eyed. Your Majesty. I bowed deeply. Rise, child. We need to talk about your future. My heart sank. If this is about the marriage proposals, it's about the Empire, he corrected. You have a gift, Lady Visha. Your intelligence network prevented a war. Your quick thinking saved countless lives. I want to make your position permanent. I'm already Royal Intelligence Advisor. I want to make you more. He pulled out a scroll with the Imperial seal. Minister of Shadows. Equal in rank to any general, answering only to the throne. It's a position that's never existed before, created specifically for you. Why? Because the Empire needs someone who sees what others miss. Someone who can be both sword and shield, light and shadow. He smiled. Also, it would make you impossible to marry without Imperial permission. You'd be too valuable to be anyone's wife. I stared at the scroll. This is freedom, he finished. The kind you've been fighting for. Take it, child. Make your own destiny. I took the scroll with trembling hands. What about Marcus and Prince Alexander? What about them? The Emperor's eyes twinkled. A Minister of Shadows can have lovers if she chooses. Or none at all. The position is yours regardless. That evening, I called both men to the Moon Pavilion. They arrived simultaneously, eyeing each other warily. I've made my decision, I said without preamble. Both tensed. I pulled out the Imperial scroll. I've accepted the position of Minister of Shadows. It makes me unmarriageable without Imperial consent, which I don't intend to seek. Marcus's face fell. Visha. Let me finish. I turned to him first. Marcus, you say you love me, but you love the idea of me, the brilliant woman who saved your life, who matches your courage. But you don't know me. You don't know that I hate mornings, that I read terrible romance novels in secret, that I'm terrified of spiders. You're in love with a legend, not a person. His jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. I turned to Alexander. And you offer partnership without love, power without passion. But I've lived one life without love, and I won't do it again. You see me clearly, yes, but you see me as a useful tool first, a person second. That's not, Alexander began. It is, I interrupted gently. And that's okay. We are who we are. So you're choosing neither of us, Marcus said flatly. I'm choosing myself, I corrected. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I'm choosing myself. Alexander studied me for a long moment, then smiled. A real smile, not his usual sharp-edged smirk. The Minister of Shadows will need allies. The offer of friendship stands without conditions. Mine as well, Marcus said quietly. You're right. I don't know you. But I'd like to if you'll let me. As a friend, nothing more. I'd like that, I said and meant it. As they left together, not as rivals but as fellow servants of the Empire, I remained in the pavilion watching the moon rise. Tanya found me there later. No regrets, she asked. None, I said firmly. For the first time, none at all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Thanks for watching.